Righty ho, so I wanted to make a quick video about tyres and tyre choices in Horizon 5 because it's one of those weird Forza blanket games where the stats seem to not necessarily tell the whole truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth because it neglects the Forza blanket effect. And actually, another thing I want to touch on real quickly regarding the Forza blanket, whilst I'm sitting here looking at this particular Mustang, is pretty much heaps of the older classic cars with, let's say, less aerodynamic body shapes get massive Forza blanket for just outright top speed. You can have a classic car that's light as anything, has an epic amount of power, and it just will not have a similar top speed to a car that's more modern and more aerodynamic. And this Mustang's a perfect example. We'll just super quickly look at that. 700 horsepower, 980 torques, basically 1400 kgs. And then you could look at pretty much guarantee that's going to be faster as well. $90 kilos more. The Mustang's just got shit tons more power. And it reckons it's good for 291, which it can barely pull really. And if we look at this, 298. You know, technically that Mustang, it should just destroy it in top speed. The power to weight ratio is so much in its favour. So when you're building cars, be cautious of Forza blanket. I quite enjoy building and racing classics, but they definitely suffer from top speed. One thing, like, I actually enjoy going through and building cars just to see how competitive I can make them for a certain class. So if you look at my A class, look at all these cars that are all set up for top of A class, and then I've got heaps more where I've taken one performance point or so off, so they're not in my top most picked cars when I'm trying to race online. Another example of the Forza blanket's the Cobra. It's only 888 kgs and it makes reasonably good power and torque, and it's just got no top end whatsoever. Like this Aston Martin here that weighs twice as much and has stuff all more power, has way more top end. It's a little bit annoying, but yay Forza. So we've kind of got off track. I just want to take another quick look at all my B class cars, just heaps, literally dozens. Tried so many builds, and anyway, so what that's taught me is heaps about the tyres and what they do and what classes they're good for. So you could take this advice and skip heaps of mucking around in the tuning process and trying a million tyre options. Personally, I think for B-class racing, you really want to be running stock tyres or the one upgrade tyre. I've got a couple of cars in B-class, four-wheel drive, light, high horsepower cars with the single upgrade tyre, and they seem to work really well. But pretty much any more upgraded tyres than that, you're just burning way too much performance points. Rally-wise, I reckon you're better off starting with a car that's a sort of factory-orientated rally car, so it's factory-fitted with a more or less a rally tyre. Then you don't have to spend a million performance points putting a rally tyre on it. So that's really the B-class tyre advice. A-class is real interesting. Some high-end cars like Ferraris and whatnot, the stock tyre is pretty much the best option for one, and because you've basically got no performance points to play with. The other conundrum that I've been mucking around with quite a bit recently is the drift tyre conundrum. So if we look at this Betty, for example, there's stuff all performance points difference between the rally tyre and the drift tyre, but Allegedly, the rally tyre just gives it way better specs everywhere. You know, you look at the lateral Gs: 1.18, 1.27, 1.09, 1.17. It's just, you know, it's practically 10% better. And braking distance usually massively favours the rally tyre. 82.6, 74.5. You think you'd just be cutting faster laps, but it's actually interesting. I've started mucking around with it, particularly on A-class cars, and I seem to be able to gain around, on most cars I've tried so far, 4 to 5 tenths of a second per lap, and the car drives really similar. I think the biggest noticeable driving difference between the rally tyre and the drift tyre is the drift tyre is definitely a bit less grippy launching off the line. But the funny thing is it feels a little bit less precise and a little bit more floaty when you're actually racing and trying for high corner speeds and under brakes, whereas the drift tyre actually feels a bit more precise under brakes and on high speed corners. It's phenomenal. Yeah, A-class racing's kind of funny. I've found some cars particularly a rear-wheel drive setup, you can have quite competitive when you're upgrading a low performance point vehicle into A-class. The groove slick can work quite well. I've found with my XA Falcon GT race car, she performs best on what I call the Forza tyre, which is just the groove slick tyre. But I have tried it with the drift tyre compared to the groove slick, and it was cutting faster laps with the Forza tyre. But that is on a tighter track. I think there is something where there's a little bit of a grey area on fast or more open tracks. The drift tyre could possibly be better because you get more horsepower. Rally-wise, pretty much, I actually quite favour the rally tyre compound. I like the advantage it gives on the road courses, or the road parts of the course, should I say. And the off-road taste, but they're both good choices. I think in a what they call mixed surface racing, which is what I call rally, either option is actually viable. But for cross-country racing, basically in any class, it is the off-road race tyre all day long. I reckon S1 class racing, groove slick all day long, and maybe the slick race tyre. But that's another funny one where you look at the actual the G's between this and the braking distance and everything, and it almost suggests the semi-slick race tyre is better. But yeah, I wonder how much Forza blanket you get when you look at the bullshit 1 to 10 numbers at the bottom there. Allegedly, the full slick's better. But none of the stats are, so yeah, it's real bizarre. The Forza blanket is a bit weird. But yeah, I hope that's kind of helped a little bit. So I'd say, particularly with A-class race cars, it's worth trying the drift tyre, definitely, regardless of what the Forza numbers say. But not so much on a more powerful rear-wheel drive car. The drift tyre is definitely more of a thing I seem to find works when you're comparing it to the rally tyre compound. The rally tyre is a super good choice. You just can't go wrong in A-class with the rally tyre. It's just a good all-round tyre. It works really well road racing. On a road race car, it's not a bad tyre, but it's worth, I reckon, trying the drift tyre. Sometimes you get a little bit more performance points to play with. Might give you that little bit of a wider rim or something. And yeah, just see how your lap times go. But they're the two that I reckon are the biggest. What one do I pick? And I think it really comes down to how the car behaves on them. So yeah, I hope that's helped somewhat, and enjoy your racing.